Well, welcome back. My name is Arianna Cruz, and I'm the founder of More, where we are working to make opportunities reachable for everyone. And this is one of my favorite series that we do each month. I get to sit with female founders that I adore and admire and learn more about who they are, why they do what they do, and also check out their amazing offices. So, Marla, thank you so much for having me. Do you mind introducing yourself a little bit before we jump in?
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm Marla Taylor. I'm the founder and president of Taylor Advising. We are a women owned, Indianapolis based consulting firm that works primarily with nonprofit organizations, but also municipalities and cities when they're focused on social good to help them make sure that they are making the impact that they want to have in our community.
That's amazing. And we got to meet through Big Brothers Big Sisters Central Indiana as we were going through our strategic planning for the next 3 years. And it was so incredible. I was saying before we got started how a lot of the female founders I know and get to see what they do in the community, but I don't always get to see them in action. And so I'm so excited to jump more into your why of why you got started and to learn more about the impact that Taylor Advising has here and everywhere that it gets to touch. So thank you again so much for joining. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I loved that we got a chance to work together and that we're
Yes.
having a chance to talk again now. I feel like there's so many things about this community where you make those great connections with other women. And so I'm so glad to be back having this conversation.
Me too. I was looking at your website, being a good steward, doing all my research before I came in, and I did not realize outside of the strategic planning that you do the community development strategy. That is incredible. I'm sure we'll jump into that more, but do you mind sharing Taylor Advising? Why advising, and what led you to this?
Yeah, I think really it started when I was a little kid. I was very fortunate to be in a household where both of my parents were so invested in me and my sister getting really ingrained in our community and giving back. They were both nurses and very involved in everything in our lives, in our community, our neighborhood, and they made sure we did the same thing. So from elementary school, I was volunteering at the library and volunteering at a community center that worked with people who had physical and intellectual challenges. And being able to just be exposed from a young age to people who had different lives than me, different opportunities than me, different challenges was really something that I think shaped everything about how I see the world. And so as I grew up and had really incredible educational opportunities and a lot of really caring adults in my life, I think it was always at the forefront for me that what are we doing here if we're not helping each other, right?
Right.
And then I'll just dive right into this because it's a big part of who I am.
Yeah.
But when I was in the 5th grade, my mom died very suddenly, which completely changed our lives.
I imagine.
And then when I was in my 20s, my dad died, again, very suddenly. And so I think both of those experiences like cemented that feeling in me that if we're not here to take care of each other, what are we doing with our lives? And there's so much about who they were, what they instilled in me early on that drives, I think, everything I do. And so much of that is about being rooted in community, building relationships, caring about other people who may not have the same experience that I have, understanding them and helping uplift them. And somehow I've figured out how to turn that into a career. I feel really, really fortunate that that's worked out the way it has.
Yeah, that's incredible, and I am so sorry for your losses. And I think oftentimes being able to take things that impact us on such a deep level and finding a way to channel it into our everyday where we get to honor the people that we love so much and that poured into us for so long and different things like that. So this is an incredible way to commemorate them and continue celebrating what they instilled in you.
Thank you for saying that. I hope so. I mean, I think this may sound really simplistic and maybe it's something we all strive for, but I really every day always feel like if my parents would be proud of what I'm doing right now, then I'm doing okay, you know?
Yes.
And I think they would be.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. So, with growing up, then, did you always have an idea of what it looked like to have a career where you were giving back or
Mm.
participating in the community, or what did that look like?
Honestly, as a kid, I thought I wanted to teach.
Okay.
There was a little while I thought I might want to practice law,
Hmm.
but I knew that whatever I did, I wanted to do something that allowed me to be curious and learn and
Hmm.
continue to use critical thinking skills. But I honestly didn't know what that looked like. And even when I went to IU and I studied sociology and gender studies, I
Hmm.
still really didn't know what do you do with that, but understand that there are social problems and
Hmm.
challenges. Um, and so when I first started my career, I was working in direct service at a nonprofit
Okay.
where I was running support groups.
Hmm.
I was doing marketing, did program development, I did fundraising, and then I was in leadership. And through all those experiences in the nonprofit sector, what I really learned was that um, my heart can't handle that direct service.
Hmm.
It's been, I don't know, maybe 20 years almost since I was working in that direct service kind of environment.
Hmm.
And I still think about the people who I met who were experiencing extreme poverty or abuse or challenges in their lives. I still worry about them when I lay in bed at night.
Hmm.
And I can't imagine doing that every day, and have so much just respect for people who are in that space who do that work because I know how
Truly.
challenging it is.
Hmm.
So I think as my career moved forward and I eventually had the opportunity to become a consultant where I was still working on addressing those same social issues that were
Hmm.
impacting the people I had worked with in my nonprofit career, but in a way that was more one step removed, so that I could
Hmm.
help to think critically about the big picture issues that were actually causing those challenges. Um, that felt like, okay, like something clicked
Yeah.
where that piece of me when I was a kid where I wanted to teach or I wanted
Hmm.
to continue to learn, I believed in uplifting the voices of people who couldn't always lift their own voice.
Hmm.
It was like all of that fell into place in this space
Hmm.
in a way I didn't even know this was a job. So again, I just feel fortunate that it's all played
Yeah.
out the way it has. Um, but I don't think little Marla really envisioned that this was something I could even do.
Yeah, I mean, I look back at it and like career day, and I don't ever
Yeah.
feel like they really cover everything that there is you're able to do.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but I think that that's the beautiful part of meeting people and talking to people and like learning all these different pathways. And I think that I see how you get to teach people still. I remember sitting in our conference room with you and with our other leadership, and you were showing us these different ways to make conversations more accessible within our internal team so that we can serve better in the community. And I thought that that was, as a young leader in my first leadership position, I was so inspired and I felt so empowered too by what you were sharing. So you definitely are still teaching, and I love the spaces that you're in. I feel like I get to see you at so many different events and knowing all the different lives and things that you're pushing into motion. It's incredible. I promise this whole interview won't just be me fangirling over you, but it's very hard to like, not do that. But
Oh, I appreciate you.
yeah. So before I lose my train of thought and ask for your autograph, let me get back on track. So what? So I think that that's so powerful because I know I started more kind of in that same space. I was directly working with people, and I was working at the Barton Center,
Mm-hmm.
doing like resume prep and interview and all those different things with some of the parents there after volunteering with School on Wheels, and it was such a big moment when I did an informational interview with somebody from Chip, who I also saw, Chelsea,
Yeah.
left a rave review on your website, which is incredible.
She's wonderful.
They're doing amazing things there. And it wasn't until I had that conversation that I realized the opportunity of helping create impact without being indirect,
Yeah.
because I thought that that was truly the only way to do it. And I think especially as we have young leaders rising in the community, finding ways to not emotionally burn ourselves out if we're not able to sustain that, and what that looks like. How did you make that connection And what was that like for you having to step back? Because I also understand if you like if your why is helping people and building those relationships, sometimes stepping back is really hard, even though it's also really hard doing it every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and to be clear, I still volunteer so much that I know my husband is like, if you join one more board. So I still definitely find ways to give back outside of my work.
Right.
But I think there became a moment where I recognized that I could personally have a lot more impact if I did step back, and that being able to make a real impact on some of the issues that I care about the most, like, for example, ensuring that every single person has access to basic human rights, to have our basic needs met, like safe housing, access to nutritional food, having equal educational opportunities, just basic things that I think we can take for granted when we do have them. I believe so deeply that every person deserves to have all of those same rights. And I recognize that because I don't have my skin's not thick enough, I guess, to be able to work in that environment day to day and bring my best self, that by taking a step back and thinking more about the systemic issues and structures that cause those inequities to begin with, I realized I could have a much bigger impact in that space than I ever could if I was out front. So one of the things I've learned over time, and with a lot of incredible mentors and people that I learn from every day in the community, is that there are a ton of experts, especially in Indianapolis. We have just a plethora of resources that are working on these issues, and people who have incredible expertise in specific areas, and people who have lived experience with those issues themselves, who know far more than I ever will. And that the best thing I can do is help uplift their voices, make sure we're thinking about the real information and data that's out there in a changing environment, so that the organizations that are designed to address those issues can better impact them. And that if I can kind of facilitate that, that's the place I can make the biggest impact, far more than being like in the trenches. And I think I've had a lot of mentors in particular who I've watched kind of become that facilitator and step back and have a huge impact, that I've learned from, to realize like it doesn't need to be me. I don't need to be out front to make it work.
That's very well said. You don't have to be up front to make it work.
Yeah.
You can help move it along. I think Indianapolis is in this very interesting space right now because it's transitioning, it's growing a lot, and I feel like I've seen more boards and also media starting to show more of the community. I feel like we've always said like this is a community, and like we want our staff and our board and everything to reflect the community that it's serving. But I feel like in the last few years, like that has really come true. And I also think, shout out to Amanda Kingsbury and the team at Mirror Indie, like we have media also very much reflecting our real community, and it's not some news report of something and we're like, oh, I didn't know about that, like did you hear about that? But it's like real stories and real communities. And we were talking about this at Big Brothers Big Sisters, having more accessibility to the board so that we have the voices of those that we are serving in the same space as those making decisions and helping to develop programming. Has that been, because I mean, that did not seem like your first rodeo when I got to see you there. So what has that been like to see more community members stepping into those spaces, and what has that impact been like from your vantage point?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because I think about even a decade ago, I'm working in the city as a consultant. A lot of times we're in boardrooms or working with executives of nonprofits, and I'm looking at a room of white men everywhere I go. There were few exceptions to that. And this was just a decade ago. And we've been, beating that drum this whole time, like we did in our work together, about how there have to be people in the room that make decisions that reflect the community you serve, and people who understand the issue because they've experienced it themselves. That's the only way that you're really going to move the needle on any of these issues. And I think I know I'm one of many who have been beating that drum for a long time. And to see the change has been just thrilling in a lot of ways, where it's not just like from my own perspective that I'm not the only in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I know there are so many people who experience that every day, but to know that it's not like I'm the only woman and the young woman
Mm-hmm.
walking into the room and having to prove herself.
Mm-hmm.
It's that I can walk in. There are people who look like me, people who don't look like me. There are so many different faces and voices in the room now that weren't there just 10 years ago. Feels like progress that I don't know how to fully articulate.
Yeah.
I think some of the things that I'm seeing in education and the arts and affordable housing and transit that are happening right now, where there's
Mm-hmm.
a ton of great progress, wouldn't have happened if we had the same people in those decision making seats that we had just 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's some momentum that's just, even, you know, in my professional career, that I've seen like kick up pretty quickly and accelerate even since George Floyd's murder,
Mm-hmm.
that changed the way that we're thinking about leadership as a collective. That
Mm-hmm.
is, we still have so much work to do, to be
Yes.
clear.
Right.
But I think there's been a lot of progress that's made the work we do feel like we're not fighting
Mm-hmm.
to get our values and our message heard,
Mm-hmm.
that people are coming to us now and saying, we believe in the same values we've always believed in, and we want you to help us get there. And that feels like the best kind of change.
Yeah, that's incredible. I also think that there's been more linking of arms and less, I don't want to say it's like, millennials bringing this like friendliness to the office, but I do think that there's been this shift of valuing collaboration over competition. Granted, there's some spaces that is still is growing and people are working their own things out, but I do feel like more people in the workplace are cheering for each other rather than like fighting each other for different
Yeah.
promotions. And so there's more space being made and more chairs being pulled up to different tables to allow a lot of this to happen. And
Yeah.
I think that part is so crucial because then it brings together people rather than feeling like you have to like leave or you're no longer wanted. It's we can do this together and like we can move forward together.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, I think people like you doing the kind of work you do, where you're elevating the stories of other women and people in the community doing good work. I mean, what's exciting is that you're not alone in that, and
Yeah.
that there are, just personally, I know so many people who make it their personal mission to uplift others all the time and
Mm-hmm.
collaborate. And yeah, I think that's a change. And I don't know if it's generational or if it's something unique to this city, but I always think about how I can't imagine starting a business doing the kind of work that we do that's really requires collaboration
Mm-hmm.
in any other city. Because I think there's something about the kind of small town yet big city feel of
Mm-hmm.
Indianapolis, where you can make those meaningful connections and people are willing to open doors,
Yeah.
and there's some sort of friendliness, hospitality, I don't know what it is, just people believing in each other, that we realize we can't do this alone. I certainly can't.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there is something really special here, and I think that's getting better and better over time, that lets all of us thrive and that we're all like trying to get there together.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't felt that sense of competition in a long time, which is a great thing.
Honestly, and I think even of Maven Space and all that, like Leslie's
Yeah.
curating there and creating space there because there are a lot of women who own businesses who go there and there's no competition. They're like, oh, I'll refer my this to you, and it's so friendly and it's so in the spirit of like everybody being able to win and not being like, well, there's losers and winners, but like everyone's able to thrive and succeed together. And I am very thankful for the cultivation that's happening here in our city. It's very cool and it's exciting to see more people coming to experience it, especially with NBA All-Star Weekend coming. Everyone's going to get the Hoosier hospitality right when they get here. But speaking of togetherness and growing together, you and your team have been growing together and going through a rebrand. Is that right?
Yeah, we're right in the middle of refreshing our brand. We're 5 years into Taylor Advising this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so there's so much that I keep thinking back to when I first started, I was not sure where this would go. I mean, I certainly had a hope and an idea, but honestly, I never imagined that we would be here at this point, having worked with so many organizations that put their trust in us over the years. Um, it's pretty phenomenal when I think about how many people have opened their doors to us. And so at this point, we're feeling like maybe our brand needs to better reflect the quality of the work we do, the breadth of the work that we've had the chance to impact in this city. Um, so yeah, our team has grown quite a bit. There are 7 of us now,
Okay.
and the level of expertise and just passion that's on our team, I'm humbled by everyone I work with every day, and I feel like I learn from them just as much as I learn from our clients. And
Hmm.
there are many days where I'm like, I don't know that I need to be here anymore, which is the best feeling, you
Yeah.
know?
But yes, being able to step back and allow your team to move the mission. I mean, one, from like an overhead standpoint, like that gives you time to continue building the business and
Yeah.
like being able to build your own internal strategy in the places that you are. But even from that, it's incredible that not knowing what it would turn into, and little Marla not knowing that this would be the
Yeah.
career, to now have this team. So you talk about the passion of the team and the rebrand. How is that tying in everybody's why and their passion,
Mm.
and how are you bringing that into the brand?
Yeah, I think that's such a important thing for me and always has been with every time that someone joins our team, really understanding what they're passionate about, what they value, why they're rooted in community, helps to just expand our collective why. And I
Mm-hmm.
think some of the things on individual people on our team, they have a really deep care for arts and culture or education, that leaning into that and helping that to expand the kind of work that we do or the kind of organizations that we partner with, has really made our work richer and our team better. And I know that's not me, that's them, that's our team collectively. And so I think leaning into the things that we individually care about helps us to do our best work every time. And that's just growing and growing as our team grows.
That's incredible. I love that. Well, before we wrap up, I have one final question.
Sure.
And I meant to tell you this because you did ask beforehand, what are we going to talk about? But how are you inspired by you?
Oh, what do you mean?
So I think it's amazing that we are inspired by so many people. So I could talk about how
Yeah.
you inspire me. I could talk about how the other women in this community inspire me. But I think a lot of the times, especially as women, as female founders, we don't take time to acknowledge the amazing things that we are doing
Mm.
and the way that we inspire others. And so I would
Mm.
love to learn how what you do, maybe a characteristic of yourself that inspires you.
Ooh, I'm not sure that I've thought about this before, but I really appreciate the question.
That's okay.
And I think the first thing that comes to mind, uh, is that I don't know how to half-ass something. If
Mm-hmm.
that's a fair way to say it.
Yeah.
Like if I believe in something, if I sign up for something, if I say yes, I'm going to do it to my
Yeah.
fullest. And it's not that because I need to like prove something, it's that I literally don't know how else to do it.
Yeah.
And that's true in every facet of my life.
I love that.
So I think if I'm not in a place where I can fully commit or fully do the most with something, I don't do it.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm grateful for that trait in myself on most days. Some days I wish I knew how to do a little less. But that's probably the thing that I would say is most like keeps me going.
That's incredible because I feel like too often we will say yes to things that don't serve us or yes to things that our heart is not in.
Yeah.
And to be able to find that line of, I'm not going to go all out for this. I'm going to say no
Yeah.
respectfully. But that's a very cool trait to have. And now I'm realizing maybe I need to work on
No.
that for myself.
I
But
don't
that's
know if I would
amazing.
recommend it. I mean, I think sometimes that if I'm volunteering for something or I'm on a board or I have a friend who cares
Yeah.
about something, like I want to show up for them.
Yes.
I'm going to be there. I'm going to come to everything. I'm going to sign up for all the stuff. I'm going to pour myself into it. And I think that's where my husband's like, could you come home a little more often? but I just know that's who I am.
Yeah.
I don't know how to switch it off.
Well, we're all learning and we're all growing.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining me for this Founder to Founder. How can our community connect with you? How can we keep up with tailored advising and all that the team is creating in the community?
Yeah, we will be revealing our new website and refreshed brand and all of our social media in about a month, so
Awesome.
in early March.
Amazing. This will come out in March, so perfect timing.
Okay, so maybe it'll be there already, but you can go to tailoradvising.com. You can find us on all the social channels at Taylor Advising, and then you'll see us out and about in the community. If you're at a event supporting a cause you care about, particularly in the nonprofit sector, someone from our team will probably be there. We love to show up for the causes we care about. And you can always reach out to me too at Marla at tailoradvising.com. I love meeting new people, learning about issues that are important to you and how we can help. So I hope that I'll hear from you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining, and join us next month when we interview another female founder making huge waves wherever they are.